If imagining creates reality, then you do not need the qualifications. You see, this quote came directly from Neville Goddard. And what this means is that if you want to become someone or accomplish something, you must operate with the end goal in mind. You must operate from a state of the wish fulfilled, which means whatever you're wishing for, whatever you've asked for, you must believe that it's been given to you, that your wish has been granted, and you need to live and operate from that position. You need to act as if it has already been a done deal so that you can get to wherever it is that you're going. Now, this is interesting because this is actually contradictory to what most people believe. You see, most people have been conditioned to believe that they're not good enough and that they'll never be good enough, right? Which is why they are typically going after qualifications, that they're going after certification, when in a lot of cases these are merely just accolades, right? That help, you improve how you're perceived, right? That you're perceived to be more educated, more qualified, a much better candidate. But in reality, you don't actually need these qualifications. And I'll give you some examples, right? In a lot of cases, let's just say for most people who are applying to financial firms, right? Let's just say they want to one day be a part of a financial firm. Most of the entry level, virtually all the positions in financial firms, they'll have it, listed in the qualifications that you need a bachelor's degree, right? And it's interesting because even though that's listed as a qualification, it's more like a preference, because there's been cases where there's people who have not received a bachelor's degree but were still able to work at these firms. And an example is several years ago, my boss, he knew a woman who worked at one of these financial firms, and he knew her for several years because they've done business together. And she was effectively a C-level executive. So she was one of the vice presidents of the company. And the interesting part about it is that she only had a high school diploma. She's never had a bachelor. She never got a master. I don't even know if she's ever been to college, but she's never had a college degree. She's only ever had a high school education. And she was able to work her way up to become an executive at one of the largest financial firms in the world, right? You see, that's an example of most people thinking that they need all the qualification in order to get what they want or to get wherever it is that they're going in this world. And that's not true, right? Someone else, right? One of my mentors, the late great Bob Proctor. If you don't know who Bob Proctor is, he's one of the major industry leaders when it comes to personal development, right? And I've learned a great deal from him. Bob Proctor, he would always say in his life story that he never received anything greater than a 5th grade level education, right? Because he dropped out of school after 5th grade. He was never able to finish traditional education and even get a high school diploma, let alone any college. And yet, by the time of his passing, he was a multi-millionaire and, was able to have friends all over the world and impact the lives of millions of people all around the world because of, his teachings. And at first, before he was introduced to personal development, right, he had the same mentality. He believed that he was not good enough, that he was not capable, and he believed that success and financial wealth and riches was not for him because he was not qualified, because he didn't have a strong education, because he didn't have a strong background, that he came from humble beginnings, that his family was poor and his family wasn't educated either, right? Those are the things that he believed until he realized that these were all faulty beliefs, that these were all not true, that you can, in fact, do well for yourself and you can be successful even if you don't have the qualifications that people think you might need, right? So think about it. A woman is able, with a high school degree, is able to become an executive, a vice president at a large financial firm. Then everything's possible, right? And anything's possible. See, some people think that Some people might have dreams of one day becoming a business owner, but they might think that they need a business degree in order to start their own business. But we know that that's not true, right? Some people might be in a position where they want to climb up the corporate ladder, or that they want to improve their finances, and they think that in order to do that, that they have to go back, and get a master's degree. And there's nothing wrong with getting an education. I support people getting an education, but I would also want people to get an education if that's what they want to do, rather than thinking that that's the only option or the only route to get to where it is that they're going. And in that case, right, having or earning more money, right? Some people think that that's the only route. Some people think that the reason why their financial situation isn't better, or why their career path isn't better or improving, is because they didn't go to the right school, or had they gone to a better school, they would be in a better position, or had they, learned this piece of information, they would be better equipped for reality or navigating life. All that stuff is not necessarily true, right? And a lot of times these qualifications, these are more like accolades that we think are always requirements in order for us to be successful. But in reality, like, it goes against understanding of how this whole world operates, right? Because the whole world, everything with the exception of nature, everything that you see was created in the mind of man. It all started as an idea, it started as a thought. So the world that you see today, the world that you can see and experience today, right now, it is largely the result of human imagination. So everything has been imagined. Reality is just our imagination, right? The world that we were born into was the result of the imagination of all the people that came before us. And the world, as it continues developing and continue on, will be the imagination of all the people here that decided to push it forward, right? That decided to increase their awareness, to create new inventions, and to improve their current way of living and pushing life forward, right? So everything has always been about imagination. So reality has been created because of our imagination. So imagination is what creates reality. So rather than trying to force it into place and thinking, oh, the only way I can get that job or that promotion is by getting another degree, or is by getting a new qualification, that is you trying to approach it logically. That's you trying to approach it through the human construct, right? There's so many human constructs in society. For example, like race is one of them. Like, race isn't a real thing, but it's just been created to help. Well, it divides people, but the claim is that it's used to identify people, but it pretty much divides people, because we're all humans, we're all people, right? That is one of the human constructs. The other idea is this need for qualification, that we need to be qualified, that we need to check all the boxes in order to be chosen, in order to be selected. But I'm here to tell you that you can create a very successful life without needing qualifications. As long as you provide value to other people, as long as you serve other people, then you will be of service to the world. And if you're of service to the world, then you will be compensated, because you will be seen as someone that's valuable, right? If we refer back to the example of Bob Proctor, he didn't have a strong education, so he didn't believe he was qualified or capable. He didn't think it was ever possible for him to get out of debt, because he owed so much money in debt, and he was making nowhere near the amount that he needed to pay off. So he thought he was going to live his life forever being in debt, right? It was only when the right people came into his life and invested in him, and he read the books and continued in search of the knowledge, right, to grow as a person. When he began developing himself, that's when he was able to discover and uncover the value that has always existed within him since birth. And because he was able to do that, he was then able to serve other people, because he was providing value to other people. So the value that he realized existed within himself, it became evident to him that that same value existed in each and every person, because we as people, we're no different from each other, right? So if I was able to realize that he was able to realize that he was valuable himself, it led him to realize and understand and believe that each and every person was valuable. It's just a matter of most people didn't discover or identify the value that existed within them. So that's what he had as his life mission, as purpose, to help people grow and improve and become the best version of themselves. And because he was providing value to them, they would provide value in return in the form of money and finances. So even though Bob Proctor never formally got an education and probably never got degrees, right? I don't know if he ever went back to school, but on his trajectory, right, he was not educated. And he would say himself that he was never educated. But because he was in search of knowledge and he dedicated his life to this and he was able to provide value to so many people around the world, he was able to live a grand and fulfilling life where he's made a difference to millions of people all around the globe, right? So you need to remember what this life is all about. This life is all about imagination. So you need to tap into your imagination to create the version of you that you want it to be, right? If you want to be the best salesman, the world's greatest salesman, right? You just need to create that vision, create that in your mind, and believe that it's already been given to you, that it's a done deal. And you need to operate from the end goal, right? If you want to be the biggest YouTuber one day, the biggest content creator, you need to believe that it's already been given to you, and you need to operate from that position, right? You can't, or you shouldn't wait to get there so then you can finally believe that you're there because you finally got there. Because if you don't believe that you're there, if you don't believe that you're close, then you're not even going to put in the effort. So you'll never actually get there, right? You'll only get there by believing that you've already been given that position, that you already made it, because then you'll operate from someone who's already made it, right? You'll show up with confidence, you'll show up with belief, you'll show up with energy. You'll be excited to put out content because you know it's building towards a greater purpose, right? You see it all the time that so many people put out mediocre work or have like mediocre effort because they don't believe that they can ever be the best. But you need to believe that you're the best so that you can put in the effort and the work that reflects that you are the best, which will effectively create you being the best, right? It's contrary. See, this idea is contrary to what most people believe, because most people think that they need qualification because these are the accolades. These are them being able to have the boxes checked off. But you don't necessarily need that. There's been so many exceptions to people, right? There's been so many exceptions for people who they might not see any opportunity, so they decide to create an opportunity for themselves, and that ends up being the best decision for them, right? Like there's so many things that you can do. Like you don't need to feel as though you're trapped in a box, that you have to do things a certain way. You have to operate logically in order to get where you're going, right? There are infinite number of variables and infinite number of ways the universe can align your desires and get you to wherever it is that you're going. So if you believe that you have to do things a certain way, that you have to take a logical path, you're basically not allowing the universe to do its job. You're not allowing it to work, right? Because you think that, and you believe that you need to be the one to have all the answers, that you need to have everything figured out. But that's not always the case. There's so many instances where people will feel as though they don't know how they're going to accomplish something. They don't know how they're going to get to wherever it is that they're going. And then somehow, some way, they were magically presented with the right people, right? And we've all had stories where an event would line up so perfectly that there's just no explanation other than like this was orchestrated by a higher power, right? This is the same idea here. You might think that you need to have all of the qualifications, that you need to have all of the accolades to get wherever it is that you're going. But in a lot of cases, you don't, right? Because the right events will unfold, the right people will be put in your life, the right things will happen in order to get you to wherever it is that you're going. So you need to trust and have faith and operate from the end. Act as if you were already given the gift that you wanted, right? That your wish was already granted to you and it's been fulfilled. And you need to believe that and operate from this so that you can get to wherever it is that you're going. So I rest up the video. Enjoy the video. Do leave a like and subscribe as we're on the road to a million subscriber, guys. So once again, it's Joel, and I'm out. I'll see you guys for the next video.